Okay, I know what you're thinking. Ooh, that's a lot of ink. Ooh. But these etudes are not as scary as we might actually think. And in this video, we're going to be going over how to tackle these etudes in a step-by-step process. Yeah. Now, you might be asking yourself, man, why do I gotta audition and practice these etudes? And well, the simple answer is that we only get better when we do things that challenge us. President JFK once said in his moon speech, "We choose to go to the moon and do the other things in this decade, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." The only way we get better as musicians and players is when we do things that challenge us. And these etudes are challenging, but when we work on them, we're gonna grow, we're gonna gain some experience, and just doing the audition process, well, at the end of the day, we're gonna grow more when we go through the audition process and practice these etudes. So don't be afraid of these etudes. They're just ink on a page. They're not gonna come to life and all of a sudden strangle you or steal your lunch money in the parking lot. They're just ink on a page. So don't be afraid of them. There's a process into learning them, and we're gonna do that right now. All right, so let's first go ahead and look at that lyrical. Now, I have the actual book where all the etudes come from every year. And if you're interested, you can buy this book on Amazon. It's super cheap. It's like $7. It's so cheap, and it's like a great deal because it has all the etudes. And this is where all the etudes every year come from. Mostly it's from this book. So you have this book. You basically have all the audition material for every year. Yeah. Alright, so typically when we get a new piece of music, we look at the title, because the title can give us a lot about the style and how we should be playing it. In this case, it just tells us G minor, which isn't very helpful. But this etude is the lyrical etude, which basically means you can think of a lyrical etude as kind of like a singing. It's like a lullaby. It should be nice and pretty. So tone quality and our sound, super duper important when we're playing lyricals. They're always important. We always want to make a good sound when we're playing, but they're even more important when we're playing lyrical etudes because that's what they're testing. But alright, so now we know that that sound and our tone, super important when it comes to this etude. And also things like phrasing and dynamics are also super duper important. But before we get into all of that musical aspect, we gotta first figure out the notes and rhythms, because we can't make music unless we know the notes and rhythms. Alright, so next we look if there's any repeats or first and second endings in this piece. You can kind of think of this like the roadmap. We're trying to see, how do we read? Is it a straight read, or do we have to like jump around the piece of music? And when we're looking from the point where we have to stop, there doesn't seem to be any repeats or first and second endings, so this is what you would call a straight read. We just read from left to right like normal. So now let's look at the time signature. If we look at the time signature, it says C, but in case you didn't know, C equals 4/4. It means common time, and that's 4/4, which is good because we're really comfortable with 4/4. So we know that each measure has to have 4 beats. So that will help a whole lot when we're figuring out the counts and counting these measures. Alright, now let's look at the key signature. So when we look at the key signature, there's 2 flats, B flat and E flat. So this is in concert A flat major. Now, not to confuse everyone about major or minor scales, but this piece is in G minor, but it shares the same key signature as A flat major. And when we think of minor scales, basically, there's going to be some interesting chords and some interesting intervals, and that'll make more sense when we play it later. But don't worry too much about it. Just know that the key signature is the same as concert A flat, 2 flats, B flat and E flat. All right, and finally we look at the accidentals. Now, there's quite a few accidentals here, but we'll figure those out as we go along. But we just have to be aware that there's going to be some accidentals, so we should have to be aware we're using the correct fingerings and we're playing the note. Indeed. Alright, now let's actually go over the counts to these first two measures. I encourage you to pause the video really quick and see if you can figure out the counts to these first two measures. Alright, here we go. So, no matter what meter we're in, we always know that the first note or rest is on beat 1. Now, since there's a lot of 16th notes in this piece, we're going to have to subdivide in 16th notes. So we can use this helpful little chart to keep track of how many beats each note gets. So since this is an 8th note, it takes up half a beat. And we can think of the 16th notes as fractions. So this is 1/4, and then this is another fourth, and another fourth. If you add all of these together, you get 4/4, which is the same as 1. One full, complete beat. So since this is an 8th note, it takes up half the beat. So, just doing some simple math, 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 2/4, which is the same as 1/2. So that 8th note is going to get 1 E. So we write the E, the E up there. Alright, so now we see that the next note is a quarter note. And we know that a quarter note has to get one full complete beat. So since we left off on E and we need one full beat, we need a total of 4 16th notes. So this quarter note has to get the and of 1, but that's only half, so we have to go to the next beat, beat 2, to get the other remaining half to complete that quarter note. Because when you add the and to E, you get one full beat, and that's what this quarter note needs. So that quarter note is on the and of 1. So we're gonna write and in uppercase, and then write and 2E smaller. So now the next note is also a quarter note, so it's going to be a similar idea. We left off on the and of 2, and it's a quarter note, so it needs one full beat, so that next quarter note has to get the and the of 2, but that's only 1/2, so it needs another half, so it also has to get 3E. So the next quarter note is on the and, same thing as before, on the and then it takes up and 3E. Alright, now where we have left are 2 16th notes and 2 8th notes. Now, we left off on the and of 3, and we have 2 16th notes, so 1 16th note gets 1 because it's only a fourth. So the first 16th note is going to get the and. This is on the and then the next 16th note, this one, is going to be on the of 3. And now we're left with 2 8th notes, and we only have beat 4 remaining. We know, like we said earlier, 8th notes gets half the beat, so the first 8th note is going to get 4E, and then the second 8th note is going to get and. So 4E and then boom, that's the end of the measure. We used up all 4 beats, and then now we go on to the next measure. But before we move on, let's just quickly underline the big beats. When we underline them, those are the beats we actually count out loud, and the smaller numbers are what the smaller letters is what we're thinking in our heads. We don't actually say one E when we're counting this 8th note. We just think of the E to stay in time, but we don't actually say it out loud. And that will make more sense when we actually go count this measure. Alright, so now we know the counts of measure 1. Now let's actually count it in time. Now, super duper important that we always practice with the metronome, because that's the only way where we really know if we're actually in time. Don't just assume you know, don't just assume you think you're in time, because more often than not, you're not in time. That's why we have to practice with a metronome. And we're gonna start this super duper slow. This is at 35 beats per minute, and the 16th note is on. So really quick, let's count the 16th notes. Here we go. 1 E and da, 2 E and da, 3 E and da, 4 E and da. So that's really slow, but we gotta take it slow to make sure that all the notes are in the correct beat. So now, let's count measure 1. Counting measure 1 together. 4 clicks and we're in. These are the 4 clicks. 1 and the 4 and. Try that again. 4 clicks and we're in. 4 clicks. 1 and the 4 and. Now, when we're counting, we can also clap the rhythm while we're counting. That's just another way to practice and getting used to the counts. So let's go ahead and do that. Counting and clapping together. 4 clicks and we're in. 4 clicks. 1 and the 4 E and. Let's try that again. 4 clicks. 1 and the 4 and. So when you're getting more comfortable with the rhythm, then you can start adding the fingers. So let's go ahead and wind pattern the first measure, wind pattern. Pushing down the notes and pushing down the vowels, but not actually playing the notes, just pushing that air. So wind patterning, measure 1. 4 clicks. Again, 4 clicks. One more time, just for good measure. 4 clicks. Now, another thing you can do to get the fingers going and actually play it without actually playing it is singing it. Now, I get it. I can't sing at all. My singing voice is just terrible, but it's good practice for our ears. And if you can sing it, you can play it. And that singing helps us be more in tune. So let's go ahead and try that. Before you do, I'll play just a starting pitch. Alright, now let's go ahead and sing it. Singing the first measure with fingers. 4 clicks. Da 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 da. I'll only do it once to save all of you from my terrible singing. But singing is good practice for our ears, and it helps us stay in tune. Alright, so we're more comfortable with the rhythms and we're getting the fingers going. So now let's actually play it. Let's actually play it this time. Here we go. 4 clicks. Again. Here's the 4 clicks. 4 clicks. Now, guess what? We just learned the first measure of the lyrical. That's crazy. High five, high five. Now, the process that we just did, figuring out the counts, counting, clapping, singing, playing, wind patterning, and actually playing it. That's basically the step-by-step process of figuring out these etudes. It takes some time, but the good thing is the more you do it, the quicker you're able to pick things up. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with the second measure. All right, now let's look at that second measure. So really quick, pause the video, see if you can figure out the counts to the second measure, and we'll go over it together. All right, here we go. So like always, this first note has to be on beat 1. Always, 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 everything starts on beat 1. Now you'll see that there's like a little flag on this thing. That basically means that this is a 1 single 16th note. It's 1 16th note by itself. So that means, we look at our chart, it only takes up 1. So that's all it gets. Now the next note, see that it's a single 8th note. It's an 8th note. 8th notes takes half a beat. So it's gonna take up E, and this is gonna take up E, and so now we're left with another single 16th note, and we're left with of 1. So that single 16th note is gonna take up the of 1. Boom. Now be aware that there's a tie, so these two notes are combined, but for now, ignore the tie. And yeah, just ignore the tie. We can add the tie in later when we're playing. Now let's go on to this next note. All right, so this next note, again, it's a single 16th note. Since it's a single 16th note, just gonna take up 2. All right, now these next two notes are a bit different. Instead of having 2 lines like these 16th notes, it has 3. What that means is that these two notes are 32nd notes. Now don't be afraid, because they're pretty simple to understand when we look at it mathematically. So when we're thinking of 16th notes, we recall that 1 16th note is a 4th. So if you have 4 16th notes, it's 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 4/4, which equals 1 total beat. Now you can divide 16th notes into smaller notes called 32nd notes. So these 32nd notes are half of this, so they're 1/8. So 1/8, 1 16th note has 2 32nd note, and that's because one single 32nd note is 1/8. Another one is another 1/8. 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 2/8. 2/8 simplifies to 1/4, which is the same value as 1 single 16th note. So that means that for 1 single 16th note, there are 2 32nd notes. Again, I'm going to say that again just to reiterate. 1 single 16th note, 1/4, is the same as 2 32nd notes. See that math? So what does that mean? That means that this is on E. This note is on E. But since it's a 32nd note, these two notes together make up all of E, all of beat E. So those two notes take up all of E. And to my knowledge, I haven't found a really great way to notate 32nd notes. You just have to be aware that these two notes are 32nd notes, and they both are in beat E, because 1 16th notes is the same value as 2 32nd notes in E. All right, now let's move on to the next 2 16th notes. We're back to 16th notes, and like we said earlier, 1 16th note gets 1/4 of a beat, so we're left with and, so one gets the and, the other gets the So this one is on and then this one is on So now, if you'll notice, this is the same rhythm as this. Whoa, it's just on a different downbeat. Instead of on 1, this is on 3. But it's the same rhythm. Whoa. So we can just, that's on 3, E, and and then 4, E. Since this is a 30-second note, these 2 notes take up all of E. Then, and boom, we're done. Whoa, isn't that crazy? It's the same rhythm repeated, so we don't have to do all that extra work because we just did it. It's the same thing. Mind blown. That's what I mean when I say that these etudes aren't actually as bad as they may seem, because you'll find that as you work through these etudes, there's a lot of things that are just straight up the same or very, very similar. So if you can figure out the first few measures, figuring out the rest of the measures is pretty simple because they're fairly similar to these measures. And to further prove that etudes aren't as scary as they may seem, let's go ahead and look at the last 2 measures of this etude, if I can find it. And what do you notice? Doesn't that look familiar? It's the same thing as the first 2 measures. That's crazy. The first 2 measures are the exact same as the last 2 measures, if I can find it, as the last 2 measures. That's so crazy. So now we technically know 4 measures of this etude, but that's so crazy. And you'll find that as you work along with this etude, that there's just other things that are similar like that. But yee. So just like we did with the first measure, let's go ahead and count this. But before we count it, I want to explain those 30-second notes really quick, because they're 30-second notes are also present in the technical etude. So like before, this is the 16th note. So together, let's just lightly tap our chest along with the 16th note while counting it. Ready? 1 E and the 2 E and the 3 E and the 4 E and the 1 E and the, really feel it. 3 E and the 4 E and the. Alright, now we said earlier that in one single 16th note, there's 2 30-second notes. So what does that mean? I'm going to demonstrate it, and then we're going to do it together, but I'm going to demonstrate it first. So here it is. It's the 16th note, 1 E and then when you add the 30-second note, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1. Let's try that together. First, the 16th note, get into that feeling, and then when I say go, well, just follow along and then match with the mat. First, the 16th note, 1 E and the, together, E and 3 E and the 4 E. Now 30-second. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1. It takes a little time to get used to that feeling, but just keep doing tapping to the 16th note. 1 E and the 2 E and the, then switch E and the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1. It takes some time to get used to, but it's more of a feeling thing. You gotta feel the 30-second note with the 16th note. All right, now let's actually count it, and we're gonna count it while clapping, counting and clapping. Here it is. 4 clicks. 1 E, da da and da. 3 E, da da and da. Let's try that again. Same thing, counting and clapping. Second measure. 4 clicks. 1 E, da da and da. 3 E, da da and da. Now that measure is a bit confusing, so of course, if at any point you just need more time with it, spend more time with it, take it slowly, and then once you feel you're ready, then go ahead and move along. You don't have to play exactly within the whole video. Just do it at your own pace and then move on to the next step when you're ready. But let's go ahead. Wind pattern, wind pattern. Here we go. 4 clicks. Accidentally played the downbeat of the 3rd measure. But same thing, wind pattern, wind pattern. Here you go. 4 clicks. Now you can sing it as well, but let's go ahead and try playing it. Here you go. 4 clicks. Try that again, one more time. Remember, airflow, super important with those lower notes. The same thing. Here you go. 4 clicks. Alright, and now let's just try combining those 2 measures together. Playing. Let's try it. Those 2 measures, 1st and 2nd measure, playing. 4 clicks. Try that one more time. Playing the first 2 measures. 4 clicks. Now just some super quick tips about this lyrical etude. This lyrical etude goes from the lower register to that higher register. So it's important to maintain air in both the lower and upper register. And when we go up into that upper register, it's important to stay relaxed and to let the air do the work. Remember, higher notes aren't higher notes, they're faster notes. You gotta use faster air. All right, now I won't go through the entire little itty bitty details for the technical. I just wanted to review one measure since this measure appears a lot in this etude, and if you know this measure, then it gets simpler to understand than the rest. But briefly, let's go over this really quick. So this is a technical etude. Technical etudes to measure how well we can, tongue, how well we can move our fingers, and all the technical aspects of our playing. So there's a lot of notes. So first, that's the title. Let's look at the roadmap. When we look at the roadmap, we see there's a repeat, but in the instructions says do not take the repeat. Again, do not take the repeat. Just play it through it once. Don't take the repeat when you're auditioning and practicing. So it's just a straight read like the lyrical. Now we look at the time signature. It's in 3/4, so that means there's 3 beats per measure. And then key signature, there's 3 sharps. 3 sharps. If you don't know what that is, you can always look at your scale sheet. But 3 sharps for us trumpet players, that's concert G major. Concert G major, that's the key signature. 3 sharps, concert G. Well, it says A major, so when you transcribe G, that's our A. Concert G major is our A scale because we start on the note A for that scale. Yeah. Alright, now let's actually figure out the rhythms to the first measure. Like I said, this rhythm pattern appears a whole lot throughout the entire etude. So if we can figure out the first measure, then figuring out the other measures will make more sense. So we're in 3/4, so we know no matter what, this note has to be on beat 1. Beat 1. So then how many beats does that first note take? Well, it's going to take a bit of explaining, so this might get a little confusing, but hopefully I explain it well enough. So that first note has a dot, and if you recall, that dot means you take half of the original note's value and then you add it. So like for the instance, a dotted half note, usually a half note, a regular half note, equals 2 beats. But the dot tells us that we take half of that, of the original beats note. So half of 2 is 1, because 2 divided by 2 equals 1. And then you add that 1 to the original amount. So 1 plus the original 2 beats, you get 3 beats. That's what that dot means. It tells us to take half of the original note's value. So half of the original note's value of a half note is 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. And then you add that 1 to 2, and then you get 3 beats. So that's why a dotted half note equals 3 beats. Alright, so now that we have an idea of what the dot means, let's actually apply that to this 16th note. So we know that a 16th note, single 16th note gets a fourth of the beat. Just like in here, one single 16th note is just that, or just that. It's just 1/4 of the beat. Now, if we add a dot, we have to take, that dot tells us to take half of the original note's value. So we got to do a little bit of math. So 1/4, divide that by 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to give you a secret math hack. If you have a fraction divided by another number, you can just take the reciprocal of the bottom number. What does that mean? Basically, 1/4, the inverse of 2 is 1/2. You can do that. I know it's so crazy, but you can do that. So then 1/4 times 1/2, well, that's just some simple math, equals 1/8. 1/8. So then that means that this dot tells us that we have to add 1/8 of a beat to this 16th note. Alright, so what does that exactly mean? Well, okay, so we have 1/4 and we add 1/8. You can do some simple math and you can turn this fraction to 2/8, because 2/8 simplified equals 1/4 plus 1/8, which equals 3/8. That means that this dotted 16th note, this right here, dotted 16th note, gets 3/8 of the beat. What does that actually mean? Well, we know that one single 16th note is equal to 2 30-second notes, to 1/8. These are 30-second notes, if you remember. If one single 16th note is equal to 2 30-second note, and one single 30-second note is an eighth, all we have to do is add another eighth. Plus what eighth equals 3/8. That will give us the value of this dotted 16th note. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there figuring out what this rhythm is. Okay, so this dotted 16th note gets 3/8 of the beat. In order for us to actually do that, we're gonna have to think of this whole thing in 30-second notes. Now remember, there's 2 30-second notes and 1 16th note. So that means there's a total of 8 30-second notes within 4 16th note. So if we think of this as 30-second notes, we can put now 1, okay, and then 2, 3. Now remember, this is in 30-second notes, so that's 1, 2, 3, 3 out of 8. It's not like this 3. This is in terms of 30-second notes. It's hard to understand, but it slowly makes more sense. It's just these notes are just like tiny notes, so they just get smaller and smaller, and we have to deal with fractions. All right, so then what about this note? All right, so that's the 16th note, but then it has a little flag, so that means this is one single 30-second note. This is just one single 30-second note, 1/8. So we're writing this in terms of 1/8. So that's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. Then this would be, this right here with the stem would be 4. Okay, so then since that's 4, we have an 8th note left, an 8th note. So since we have 4 30-second notes so far, these two notes make up 4 30-second notes. That means we have 4/8, and 4/8 equals 1/2. So that means half of the beat is taken. Half of the beat. Half of the beat. So since this is an 8th note left, this 8th note gets the and. And if we're thinking of this in 30-second notes, we multiply the and times 2. So then this single 8th note right there would get, I'm running out of space to write, but 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, I know that's a little confusing because we're dealing with such tiny numbers, but let's go ahead and move on really quick. So, ignoring the tie, we know that since all of beat 1 is done, because that adds up all of beat 1, we can go back into thinking this as 16th notes. So, we left off the so then we're on beat 2. So, this is on beat 2. This note right here, this note, I'll draw a line. So that's on beat 2. This is an 8th note, so it takes up half of beat 2, so it takes up 2E, right? All right. Now, this is, you can think of this as a triplet within the and that's a little weird to think about, and these rhythms are a little weird because they're such tiny rhythms, but basically, these 3 notes fit within the and it will make more sense, hopefully, when we count it. But basically, all 3 of these notes take up all of but they take up all of that. So then they take up of those 3 notes take up that. We're left with another 8th note, so then this 8th note is on 3 for sure, and it's the same thing. These 3 notes. Those 3 notes take up the and as well. And it will make more sense, hopefully, when we actually count it. So that these 3 notes are within the and. And then, like I said, hopefully when we count it, this makes more sense. But all the other rhythms are, like, this specific rhythm shows up a lot. So if we can understand this first measure, then understanding the rest will become easier. Now again, we're dealing with 30-second notes, so really quick, let's do the same thing, tapping our chest, tap with the 16th note. Here we go, together, here we go. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Now let's do it in 30-second notes. Here we go, 30 seconds, note 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back to 16th notes. Here we go. Together. And E and 2 E, 3 E and 4 E and switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. It helps a lot to actually count it out loud while tapping, because then you can actually feel it. Now let's actually count it. Now we're just gonna count from beat 1 to beat 2, and we gotta think about this in 30-second notes. And that I know it's so confusing. I was mega confused at first, but it just takes time. So I'm gonna demonstrate it, what it sounds like. So I'm thinking in 30 seconds notes. So I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 E and 2 E and Gotta think in 30-second notes. But I'm gonna clap it. And I'm gonna say the 30-second notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. I'm going from B1 to B2 and thinking in 30-second notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Let's try it together, counting and clapping. Together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Now it's going to take some time to get used to that feeling, so don't be afraid to just count it over until you really feel it. It's more about feeling than necessarily counting, because we're taking at 35 beats per minute and already I'm counting super fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I were to take it any faster, I'd be like, so it's important to really understand the feeling. So what about the next things, the next note? So it's the 8th note and then 3 notes within the and I'm just gonna clap it just to see if it makes more sense that way. But here we go. I'm gonna clap it. The downbeat of beat 2. I'm clapping downbeat of beat 2. Da 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 da. 2 E da 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 da. 2 E da 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 da. Let's try a few times together, counting the downbeat of 2 to the downbeat of 3. Here we go. 4 clicks. 1 E. 2 da 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 da. Again. Da 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 da. Again, it takes some time to getting used to, and you'll notice that when we're playing the triplets, well, they're not triplets, but you can think of them like triplets. We're playing them on the and, because that first 8th note takes up 1 E, and that's when we're playing those triplets on the and. So I'll count it just to show. 1 E and da da da. Do it one more time just to show that those triplets are on, well, triplets are on the and. So 2 E triple 3, 2 E and. So it's a bit confusing, but if you can understand the math part of it with the 30-second notes and the triplets within that 8th note, then it's a bit easier to understand the entire etude, because that rhythm appears basically the entire etude. That is the etude. It's just that rhythm. So let's go ahead and wind pattern this. Just like with the lyrical, you can count it, clap it, you can also sing it, but for now we're just gonna wind pattern. All those other things you can do is to help you during your individual practice. It's just other things you can do besides just playing. It's about playing smarter, not harder. But let's try wind pattern. First measure. Here you go. 4 clicks. We're gonna go to the downbeat of 1 of the second measure. I forgot to say that, but same thing. 4 clicks. One more time. 4 clicks. And now let's try playing the first measure to the downbeat of the second measure. Here we go. 4 clicks. One more time, same thing. 4 clicks. And then, like I said earlier, the rest of the etude is that rhythm are just very similar. That rhythm is like all over the place in that etude. So again, it takes some time to get used to that feeling of 30-second notes and those triplets within the and, but you gotta give it some practice, some time, but it will come, it will come. And there we have it, a really in-depth step-by-step guide of going through those etudes and how to tackle the etudes and how to slowly progress through them. This was a long video. Hopefully it actually helped. And if you have, any questions, you can always message me and be like, yo, what's this note, or anything at all. But that was a very in-depth guide, step by step. And with these etudes, you just got to take it one step at a time, one step at a time. It takes some time, but if you put enough time with it, you can definitely be able to learn and play the entire etude. And again, don't be afraid of the etude. They look scary, but they're not as bad. There's just some very similar things within them, but if you look at them and really analyze them, you'll see it's not so bad. You think it was like the final boss, but it was like maybe the middle boss, probably the first boss, but it's not so bad. But and of course, should all audition regardless, even if you don't learn the entire etude. We should still audition just to gain that experience, to gain those gains. But